excited to have you here today at the first of a three-part series on hacking the Big Four. What brings us all here together is that we are respective and creative minds. My name is Event-Nmk, and I'm with IBM Research. I will be the MC for all three. Yes, IBM Research is the cool side of IBM. We leverage research, science, technology to address and innovation to addressing the continent's challenges, and with that we're excited to be part of this auspicious program. Without further ado, I would like to invite Ms. Esther Mushiri, the Director of e-mentoring, to give welcoming remarks.
For people to understand the big picture that government or the big thinkers of this world have when they come up with ideas. Today we have a representative of the United Nations on the Sustainable Development Goals. When you think of that, you go, wow, what are those? Then the government came up with a vision 2030, and the government came up with now the Big Four. And in interacting with young people, we realized that the question is, what is the Big Four? My big son, who is now 26, sadly, when I asked him about the Big Four, his answer was, Mom, it's not the Big Four, it's the Big Five. Totally, he went into the tourism sector. He thought of the animals and not the Big Four, the development agenda. So I wondered how many other, and he's 26, how many other have no idea what we are talking about? So the reason we put this together with our partners, Huawei, ICT Authority, the National Museum, the UN, SDG, and others, is really to help us start understanding this. My background is in IT, and I'm very excited to see how can we use technology for development. And so the Big Four really presents that opportunity. So today's forum for us is getting you, assuming most of you are techies, but even those of us who are just passionate about these sectors, or those of us who just want to mentor, to sit together and start thinking, how can we understand this in our own language, get the big picture, and we are very happy that we have an expert from the President's Delivery Unit to tell us what is this big picture that the government put in place. And then together journey and develop solutions that can actually start making a difference, but solutions that are driven by yourselves. So take it from us, we really are throwing the ball at you. We hope you will catch it, you will run with it, and we are here to work with you. As an organization that is passionate about mentorship, we shall journey with you so that at the end of the day, you are proud with the product you develop from here, and you will be saying, yes, I contributed to the development of my country. And with those few remarks, Tanya, I am done and happy to journey with you from now on. Thank you so much.
I do Bachelor's of Public Health and Pharmaceuticals with Information Technology.
I like that. Not that I didn't like the others.
I do electronic media.
No, okay, yeah, that's great too. What's in electronic media? As you're walking to that gentleman over there, tell us about what your studies are about.
Well, electronic media, it deals with radio, television, editing, production, and all that.
So how does that tie into the Big Four?
Well, I was hoping to get some insight, especially when it comes to the ICT bit of it, because I'm thinking of an entrepreneurial idea of getting YouTubers in one space and having them use that channel to create businesses and such. I don't know. It just made sense to me when I was coming here.
But thank you for your input. Give her a round of applause. We put her on the spot. So up next, I would like to invite Adam Lane, who is with Huawei.
Welcome everybody here. It sounds like we have some really, really committed people who are doing very, very relevant things, whether they're studying or work, and are very passionate. I think that's the most important thing. Quality is always more important than quantity. And I think actually having a smaller group today will mean we have much more useful conversations when you start thinking about actual projects and products that you want to develop in your teams later. So I'm really excited. I apologize, I won't be able to stay all day. There's something about Chinese companies that is about working hard, including on weekends, fortunately. But I will be back in a couple of weeks for the next round and for the final, I think it's in October. So my name is Adam. As Tonya mentioned and Esther mentioned, I work with Huawei. There's a couple of logos around. We don't only make smartphones or selfie sticks. We also do a lot of technology products and projects with the government and with businesses. And nowadays, we're working on technology products for cows and for fish and for medicines and other things. So that's, I think, what's really exciting. And we're hoping we can work more with young people and innovators in the future. We're very committed to supporting technology in Kenya. We've been here now almost 20 years. We do a lot of programs with our wonderful partners, ICT Authority, as well as the UN SDG Partnership Platform and others. We support the Presidential Digital Talent Program, where we have a lady here today, providing training for young students and graduates. We even have programs working for youth who have never been to university as well, called Digital Skills for Life, and we're really happy to support this project as well. I don't know how much of this country is young people, depending how you define young. In the UN, I think it's under 35 or something. It's probably like 2/3 of the country. Under 70 is young people, so 90% of the country. But most importantly is that you know what the problems are affecting you and your colleagues and your kids. And only people that know the problems can work out the solutions and how to get those solutions to make a difference to those people. Otherwise, we can make wonderful solutions and they don't get to the people that really need them, or the fish that need them, or the medicines that need them, or whoever's using the solutions. So we really want you to develop some good things, and we hope together with E-Mentoring Africa and other partners here, we can help some of you develop them onto the next stage. So I won't talk too long, but thank you very much for coming on your Saturday, and I hope to hear some really exciting things in the future. Esther's pointing at something. Yes. I don't know, I was just holding a selfie stick. Did you all get one? Okay. Sorry? No, I was just holding it. It's okay. I went to the show in Deme, the youth under 70, how they work. But be careful, don't take selfies in public in case someone steals your phone. And don't take selfies in the middle of the street or on boats in case you fall in the river or get hit by a car. Don't cross the road whilst reading your phone. There's important aspects to using technology that we're seeing some of the perils of technology. And I'm sure we have some of the young girls here who know more about using smartphones than I do. So you can teach us later. Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning. So many greetings until now. Thank you for coming. As you heard, my name is Eunice Karaoke. I'm the Director of Partnerships, Innovation and Capacity at ICT Authority. And before I do my remarks, I am not the only one from the ICT Authority here today. As you have noticed, we are the innovation partner, and we have many roles here. We are also host partner because we have something there called HACK. But before we get to that, the word Presidential Digital Talent Program has already been mentioned severally, and I want the members of or Presidential Digital Talents in this audience to stand up, please. The President of the Presidential Digital Talent Program in the house today. So if you can come up, please.
Everybody. Good morning once more. Thank you for gracing this occasion. Patrick Muraya Itaiga is my name. I'm the current president of COSPRI, the Presidential Digital Talent Program. This is a government initiative program that grooms the people in the ICT sector and have passion and have just newly graduated from the university, and just not only graduating, but having a minimum of second-class upper honors during their graduation period. This is a group of It's a competitive process during the selection. In this cohort 3, there were more than 10,000 applicants, 700 shortlisted, 400 passed through. And with me, I have my constituency. In the application, I have Fred, I have Debbie, and Janet, and Mary Muradi. They are in application, software development. Mary Muradi is in also application and network security. So we are glad to be here, and we are very honored to be part of the Sustainable Goal Developments and the Big 4 agenda: housing, food security, manufacturing, and agriculture. So I thank you very much. With those few remarks, I urge the future generation of God, but with the Presidential Digital Talent Program, we want to have many people, just you can have a seat. We want this program to grow, and each and every person who is in the high school level and want to join in the ICT fraternity, for them to be looking forward to join this prestigious program that gives them employability skills, that give them a lot of exposure to provide solutions for the government and the private sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. I have actually just earned my day because to get an opportunity to start, I just trained the president right there. We will work on speeches so they are shorter. I'm really delighted to be standing here on this inaugural HACK-THE-BIG4 forum, which is the first of a series of several to come through. Thank you for responding. I stand here in my capacity as sort of to represent ICT Authority as the entity that carries the power that can make the difference in the Big 4. That power is not exclusive to us. It is just a mandate that ICT Authority has, and it is the ICT. ICT is an enabler of the Big 4. That is how we see it. And that is why it was so important that we should partner with Event-Nmk Africa. Thank you for thinking this through and convening. And thank you to Huawei for sponsoring this first one. Thank you to our esteemed panel of speakers for coming to breathe life to it. The problem that Esther talks about is one that we are very familiar with. We are talking about the Big 4. Our interaction with the youth, because I spend a lot of time running programs such as the Presidential Digital Talent Program, and we have several others. I know that a lot of people don't understand what the Big 4 is, how they can relate to the Big 4, how they can play a role in the Big 4, what really the hula baloo is all about the Big 4. And therefore, just an opportunity to be able to break it down, to bring it closer to the people who can make it happen. I have quickly looked at the audience, and we have the younger generation and a few age mates there. Thank you for coming. Our role as ICT Authority is really to facilitate forums and to breathe life into the private sector, who very often have the power, both in expertise, sometimes in resources, and they have in their strategic goals and plans the will to want to really contribute in the right way in this space. What as ICT Authority will be doing when we finish this series, or as we go through this series, is to continue facilitating. And this is how. 1, in partnership with National Museums of Kenya, we are represented by the people who are providing technical speakers and everything here. Is there anyone from National Museum in the audience? Right. We negotiated and discussed the need to tie innovation into our heritage. We already have M-Pesa. We have many others, but they don't have a place where they can call home, where we can nurture them and later on embed them into our heritage, into our museum's whole agenda. So the generations to come can go to one stop place and take stock and say, this is by us, for us. We are so rich. And so, we were able to come up with what we are calling Heritage Innovation Lab. National Museums of Kenya have given us a facility right at the end where we have the restaurants. It's a small facility, but it is not the facility, but rather what we can access. We can access this facility to hold forums. We can access the studios to be able to, the electronics. Was it you? Someone? Yeah. We can access a lot of facilities countrywide that they have, so that people with innovations in the Big Four tying into the big agenda can actually access. Now, here is why I'm talking about this. When we go through this hackathon, there will be a selection and there will be winners. We shall host, we shall incubate the winners in hell. That is what ICT Authority brings. Over and above that, we will carry them to all our forums to give them exposure, to continue to build their capacity. So those who are here to really come and participate in the hackathon, take it seriously. This could just be the beginning. Make the most of the esteemed speakers who are going to break it down for us, so that if you have any idea that you've been sitting on and it's not making sense what you can do with it, then this is the time for you. With that, I want to thank Event-Nmk Africa, Esther again, our speakers, our partners, and all of you for coming so that we can host this together. Thank you very much. I wish us all a fantastic day and participation in all the series to come. Thank you.
So delighted to be here. Once again, it's Ali from Neki. I'm the advisor for strategic partnerships in the UN system in Kenya. We have 21 UN agencies in Kenya, so we have one of the largest global footprints of the UN, including 2 global head offices. UN Environment and UN Habitat, the global head offices are actually in Nairobi. So we have quite a rich array of institutions here. And we have a number of regional offices that take care of the whole of Africa. So it's an exciting opportunity for us to really look at how we can get behind the vision of the government, and particularly behind the Big Four agenda. What I'd like to just start with is context. One very important issue to think about is in the 50s and 60s, when we sort of neared independence and got independence, there were a number of countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, whose economies were quite similar to the economy of Kenya. And we all started with fairly low populations as well. Today, these are all the Asian tigers. They seem to have done extremely well if you look at the per capita GDP or income of citizens in these countries. They've become extremely wealthy countries. And so how did they do that? And what do we need to do now to really accelerate our own economic development? And so if you look at the average age of people in Kenya, we're looking at about 19. In fact, across Africa, I understand it's about 19. If you look at the average age in Europe, it's about 52. That is very important for us to understand, because we have what's called the opportunity of a demographic dividend. It means we have young people who can be absorbed into the economy, into the workforce, who can be productive employees or productive employers and entrepreneurs, who can really grow the economy. And that's what the Asian tigers did. They made sure they got skilled labor in the knowledge, service industry, manufacturing, into the economy quickly. And we need to get rich before we get old. We've got 30 or 40 years. So it's what I call a receding window of opportunity. Because as you get older, you now have a population, as in Europe, where you have old age pensioners, and a large chunk of old age pensioners with fewer younger people who have to work really hard to support and maintain these safety nets for old people. So the opportunity for us is to get rich before we get old, and the opportunity is now. And I think you are the engine of that potential opportunity. So it's important to have that context and also sense of urgency on why the Big Four is so important. The second context is, of course, around the SDGs. And thanks for the segue to SDGs. So in the year 2000, there was the first global agreement across over 190 countries, member states of the United Nations, which is owned by member states, on what was called the Millennium Development Goals. These were 8 goals around some level of common consensus of where do we want to get in health, in education, in water and sanitation, common problems across the world. So there were targets and goals that were agreed upon. And in 2015, when this was reviewed, there was almost a 2-year process. And Kenya actually took some significant leadership here, because we had Ambassador Macharia come out from Kenya, who was the representative of Kenya to the UN General Assembly, who co-chaired a committee called the Open Working Group to actually develop the SDGs. So the SDGs are 17 goals that have been developed. They're interconnected goals. It's around health, education, the environment. It's really about protecting humanity and protecting the planet. And the 17th goal is the one that I'm particularly passionate about, which is around partnerships. Because nothing happens if we work in silos. It's like the African proverb, if you want to walk fast, you walk alone. But if you want to walk further, you walk together. So we need partnerships in every way. And these 17 goals were adopted in September 2015. And we're looking at a period of 15 years. So by 2030, there are clear targets we want to achieve. 17 goals, 169 targets, and over 200 indicators. So it's not just theoretical, abstract, conceptual, it's about concrete targets that are measured in over 200 indicators. Now the Kenya government has already selected out of that 120 indicators to start with. The opportunity for me also is, if you look at our society, we often operate in silos. So you talk about private sector, you talk about private sector companies. They have a certain language and a certain etiquette between themselves. They will talk about return on investment, IRR, triple bottom line shareholder value, etc., etc. You speak to the NGOs and we talk about log frame, outputs, outcomes, indicators, you heard all of that. And yet, when you look at CSR, when you look at social enterprises, the divide between private and non-profits is coming very close. What the SDGs do is cut across the silos and help us all understand the impacts we are making to society in a measurable way. And every year, Kenya creates a report that goes back to the UN to show progress against these targets. The big point I want to also make is that two learnings came out of the MDG process. One learning was that it can't be a top-down process. You can't really get people to do things if they don't own those things themselves. So we need to have a consultative process. And Ban Ki-moon, the last Secretary General, announced the SDG adoption as the most consultative process in history. It was an over 2-year process. The SDGs are therefore not a UN product. It's not owned by government. It's not owned by NGOs. Everybody owns SDGs. We all own SDGs. The government has a mandate to track and report and strengthen. The UN has a mandate to provide technical assistance, but we all own the SDGs. So I would encourage you to get onto Google, to really look at the SDGs, understand the targets, understand the impact measurement framework. And the exciting thing is private sector has jumped into this as well. So if you look at the Safaricom Sustainability Report, if you look at the Standard Chartered Africa Sustainability Report, they've got SDGs all over them. We're now talking the same language. It's not like those old CSR reports with so many hospitals and so many schools that you really didn't understand the impact. We now have clear measurable impact. The next thing I just want to mention is that if you want to make partnerships work, you really need to make sure that there's ways to break those silos between faith-based groups, NGOs, private sector, government, bilaterals, multilaterals. So what we did was we worked with the government, and the government announced last September in the UN General Assembly the creation of an SDG partnership platform. And in your folders, you'll see some description around the platform. And the platform is really around contributing and complementing the efforts of government to drive the Big Four agenda. So as you're trying to drive the Big Four agenda, there's a lot of public financing that goes towards the Big Four agenda. But we know that in Kenya we have a fairly high debt. And so a lot of our annual funds are spent on repaying those loans. And we also have a high recurrent budget, salaries particularly. So the flexible development financing is fairly finite. We really need to look at other ways to complement development financing. And so the role of the platform is to unlock private and philanthropic capital to support the government in the Big4 agenda. So what does that mean? That means we've created a one-stop center to fast-track investments in Kenya, to make Kenya the most attractive investment destination we can, to improve the ease of doing business. So we now have private sector partners, Philips, Huawei, Safaricom, Merck, AstraZeneca. We have a couple of private sector partners. We have bilaterals like the Netherlands and US and others. We have the World Bank and others. And what we do is we go county by county, block by block, and try and understand all the Big4 agenda, starting with health, where the key gaps are, particularly in primary health care, where there's over 30% of Kenyans below the poverty line. And try and understand where the transformative actions might be. And then try and look at those actions and tease out those actions that are what I would call bankable propositions. Which are the actions that can actually have an income stream? Which are the projects that can create income while it's doing good? And which are the ones that we can attract private capital into? Because private capital will come in for a return. And it's important to think about breaking through or disrupting current systems and current approaches. So don't be held back. It's like this saying by George Bernard Shaw, that some people look at the world and the state of the world and say, why? And other people dream about a much better world and say, why not? So think about why not. Think about being a disruptor. Don't be held back by previous paradigms. The other thing I would also say is, that this is a saying from the American, life is a lofty and noble calling. Life is a lofty and noble calling. It is not a mean and groveling thing to be shuffled through as best as we can. So you're here for a higher calling. And to get to that higher calling, the education, the training, the ICT training, the skills training that you're getting is only as good as its service back to society in Kenya. If you can get the best education and serve society in Kenya, that will be your greatest impact for education. If you don't do that and you simply get certificates and credentials and degrees, it's called intellectual vanity. You're just doing it for yourself. But if you can serve society on an ongoing basis through your lifelong learning, that is a lofty and noble calling. And I'm delighted that with this group, we have, I think, champions who can move the Big4 agenda in Kenya. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, now I can see that you are alive. I'm happy to be here this morning. When Esther invited me, I had a bunch of things. I'm going to South Africa, but I said I must come because this is an area that we must support the president to see that we have achieved his agenda. If you look at the agenda, actually it is what Ari was talking about. Because if you look at SDG 1, 2, 3, 9, and 11, they actually are dealing with the issues which the president has highlighted. If you also look at the Vision 2030, they are actually the same. But what we keep on talking is that we must work together in order to achieve those objectives. Let me give a few examples because what I want to talk about is how do we apply ICTs in the Big4. I've actually been writing about the errors that we are doing and we are not supporting the president. One gentleman talked about big data. I said, wow. And programmers here, you are very key to the attaining of that because the decisions that we make on Big4 must be based on solid data. But that solid data is never available for the programmers, for those who are developing solutions. First example I'll give you. I was looking for, Adam was talking about fish. He was asking about the fish. And they said, what is the total addressable market of fish in this country? I thought it was a very easy question. So I said, well, I will look at the economic survey and get the total addressable market. What is the consumption? I went there was nothing. I went to the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries and I said, can you give me this? They said, no, here are the records that we have. Everything there had the total production of fish in this country, but nobody knew the consumption of fish in this country. But foreigners have come and done the studies and found the number. We don't have it. And then we are complaining why the Chinese are exporting fish to Kenya. Because fish is part of food security. They are exporting here because we didn't know the addressable market to do something. Eventually I got it out. And this I got it by accident. I was watching Profit Point CNN, a company called Victory Fish Farm. And I would actually send that thing so that everybody sees. This report in CNN said we had a deficit of 800,000 tons of fish in this country. Our consumption is at 1.2 million tons. That's how the Chinese realize there is space, there is market we can export. And I said, how come we don't have such big data so that when these young people develop solutions, we are able to make decisions based on data. 1.2 million tons consumption. And we have a lot of young people working without jobs. So Victoria goes to Lake Victoria, begins industrial fish production. What that means is that they sorted out the problem in industry. If you see their fish, I think it's 1.5 kg from number 1 to number 1 million. So they are actually able to come and tell you, I'll sell you fish at 500 shillings a piece. Now the problem is that our very own people, they will go and catch one which is very big and one which is small. They can't be able to sell in Nairobi because they say, moja ni kubwa sana na ingine ni kidogo. Lakini bei, the price is somewhere, they can't price such things. So these are the problems we must begin to deal with. Those of you who are developing things. And I urge you to look into the emerging technologies that are going to drive the fourth industrial revolution. Those are blockchain and artificial intelligence. And then there are artificial intelligence, blockchain, to provide a solution, which is the best solution that deals with what is we are talking about, the eliminating poverty here, because they are able to give Mama Mona credit, which nobody would have given, no bank in this country would have given. But they have used artificial intelligence, they have used big data, they have used blockchain. The questions you must be asking yourselves is not to come here and tell us that we are coding for this, we want to provide a solution. Ask questions. How did they do it? How do I use this to create such a product so that we begin to develop robust solutions? Because people don't ask. I'm in these apps and people come with a solution and they ask me, how do we monetize? You see, what were you thinking when you started doing this? You know, we must think together because there are new models. Everybody is thinking, as Ali was saying, to disrupt. Let me give you an example so that you see that your disruption should not be around just where we are. You see, the largest transport company has no vehicle. You know, this is the right. The largest retailer, Alibaba, has no inventory. The largest media company, Facebook, does not make content. There is the largest telecommunications, Skype. They have no infrastructure. Yeah? Why would you be thinking on a small thing to move this chair from there to here instead of thinking how to make the largest bank, which has no banking facility, but the largest insurance, which has no banking? You work from your house, and isn't that possible? Isn't that, I'm a teacher, Isn't that possible? If you actually think, how do I provide the cleanest water, which is a problem, yeah, which is part of food security.
Say big five.
Good morning. So thank you for joining us this morning. We are going to have a very interesting and interactive session. The whole point is to try and demystify what this Big Four agenda is. And I have a very experienced panel who are going to tackle each of these Big Four opportunities. I would like to welcome my panel to come up.
Good morning. Habari zetu. Salamu za serikali. Tuko salama. Now, my name is Lee Chonze. I am a director at the President's Delivery Unit in charge of technology and innovation. So when I got the invitation to come, I felt that this was very appropriate. And I'm glad to be here. Well, two things. One is I am a very strong advocate of homegrown solutions. And I don't just advocate, I try to put it into practice. I'll give you an example. At the delivery unit, we have a system called Government Performance Reporting System, which is connected to all the ministries, all the government agencies, and through that we are able to get a status of all the projects, all the initiatives being taken care of by government across all the counties. And we're able to get real-time updates from the ground, from the ministries, and some people have the ability to give us evidence. So if the ministry tells us they have done 1, 2, 3, somebody on the ground can even take a photo and send that to us to validate and to verify that that is exactly what is happening on the ground. Now, this is something we have built internally from scratch, using Kenyans, our own local resources, salaried Kenyans, no extra funds, no extra resources. This is something that the PDU has built internally, homegrown. So it's something I'm passionate about, and I think we have the capability and capacity to do these things ourselves. And so hopefully we can encourage each other to continue thinking things that are value to us and things that talk to us in a direct way. Secondly, the President's Delivery Unit is given the task of following up on the President's promises. For this term, we have the Big Four. So manufacturing, the key objective under manufacturing is actually to create jobs. So as we think about manufacturing, as we think about what ICT can do to add value to the process of manufacturing, let's remember that at the end of the day, the idea is to create jobs. We have food security, and the idea basically is to ensure that we are a food secure country, not just on food, but also on nutrition. So we start talking about maize alone and other complementary food items. 4 key areas we're looking at here is affordability, availability, accessibility, and quality of the food. And number 3 is healthcare, affordable, rather universal healthcare, where every Kenyan should have the ability to get healthcare access, quality as well, affordable, and be able to be covered so that at least healthcare issues don't have an impact on us financially. Lastly, is the issue of affordable housing. And how did this fall come about? When the president was going around, His Excellency the President was going around in 2016, 2017, trying to ask for your votes, he went with a scorecard that we prepared, which highlighted many things that we have done, which were mostly infrastructural projects. So roads, SGR, we built technical institutes, we tried to give children tablets, we tried to equip medical hospitals, and so on and so forth. We built even new ports, started building a new port, added new bags in the last term, but then there's something he was getting from the public. Some of them were not quite identifying with some of these projects. Fine, SGR is big, it has an impact on us in an indirect way, but many people were not identifying with it. So he picked that feedback and decided to focus on wananchi facing, touching projects. And that's what we're talking about: food, healthcare, housing, and jobs. So those are the two things that we want to start by highlighting.
Thank you. I think I'll go to Mr. Lawrence. Tell us something about what you do and how that then fits into the Big Four.
Okay, so my name is Lawrence Borobi. I've been in manufacturing for about 20 years now, about 12 or 13 of them abroad, where I worked with some very sophisticated manufacturing type setups, and then worked also in manufacturing in Kenya until I decided that it was I needed to start my own manufacturing establishment to support basically smaller sized enterprises. So manufacturing as defined by the Big Four, when you just read the initial write-up, tends to allude to very big manufacturing setups like the tanneries, fish, etc. But there are many places that I found that Kenyans can participate in an effort to achieve its goal, which is to create employment, and also to enhance local production versus importation. And there's a big impact of that because you'll find that over the last maybe 10 years, if you go to the supermarket, you would find that it was 90% of the products were imported, especially in the fast-moving consumer goods market. But now you'll find that local enterprises are participating in that space to where even the multinationals are find it a bit difficult, or they have to keep innovating to be able to participate in the same space. It's very encouraging, and it's also very encouraging to see that the government has seen this as an opportunity for especially young entrepreneurs to participate, create jobs, and create products that are Kenyan made. Most of the ingredients are actually made in Kenya. If you look at one of the agendas is agri-business, agri-processing. So you'll find things like canola oil that has been manufactured in Nanyuki that has a huge demand in Europe, has a huge demand in North America, but the conduit which is manufacturing to get it into a format that can be exported was not there for a long time. If you look today, you'll find basic honey coming from Kitui, from Eldoret, from different parts of the country, are basically what we are consuming that maybe even 3 years ago we were not consuming. And how does ICT play even in the manufacturing space? You know, in manufacturing, in most cases, you're either a business-to-business type of enterprise or you're a business-to-consumer enterprise. When you're a business-to-business enterprise, you need ways to be able to feed information back and forth from your customers. For example, whether it's in knowing what their demands and try to provide expertise to people at the bottom of the pyramids to enhance the quality of their products. How do you get that information? I think Dr. Vitangi was addressing the use of data, right? So when you're building an application to know that I'm going to supply honey to Kawangware in one section of Kawangware versus the other, how do I know?
Start looking at manufacturing, not only start looking at exports. and maybe it's a conversation we'll come back to in terms of then what do you see as the low-hanging fruits for SMEs, because that's where our economy, from a business perspective, 60% play in that space. The few private sector that will then say are growing at form of 40-30%. So how do we look at the low-hanging fruits within that space? Because it's one of the things that IMF is also keenly looking at. Now, just jumping to Doc. Doc, there's this sad story of Kenneth that happened recently, and I know it's a very controversial topic, and it's a painful story, but it's something that we need to talk about, because we only have, and I don't know whether the data is right, 74 ICU beds in the whole of the country, public. So this is a person who's gone to a public health facility and is not able to get a bed. And on the other side, he can't afford to take the patient to a Khan, he can't afford to take the patients to Mata or wherever. So he's left there, you know, he has only one option to wait for the bed because he can't afford to take the other person. And if you look at the latest report by KEPSA, one of the things, the 6 key things that they talk about is one, affordable healthcare. How do we get the costs down? How do we look at manufacturing our medicine locally? Dr. Bitanga is talking about ridiculous cost of medicine, and yet we can throw it back to manufacturing and get our own medicine. What do you think is the big opportunity for the SMEs again, looking at healthcare, and how do you see them plugging into that, even as we support the government in terms of achieving this agenda of affordable healthcare, universal healthcare?
Okay, thank you so much, and I appreciate being invited at this platform. Let me first start with a quick survey of the audience. How many of you are thinking in terms of innovating in the agribusiness space? Just lift your hand up. Okay, so that's around about a third. What about housing? Okay. Manufacturing? Good. And healthcare? Okay. So quickly, it shows from the hands for the ones who are not saying that the fewest number of innovators are in the healthcare space. But I want to turn it around and tell you that, you know, healthcare is the cornerstone of everything. If you're not healthy, you'll not be able to deliver any of these big agendas that you're talking about. And then if you look at the SDG platform, the SDG goals, 16 out of 17 touch directly on health. So if you look at the environment, if you look at education, if you look at nutrition and poverty, everything has a link towards health. So for all the other 3 innovators who are looking into the other 3 pillars, just know that your innovation will directly impact on health. Whether it is improving manufacturing space. So if your innovation is not safe, if you're looking at an item or a machine that's going to hurt the person who's going to help them, so you're not looking at occupational health safety in terms of manufacturing. If you're looking at housing, if you're coming up with innovative housing, say to address the nomadic population, if you don't look at ventilation, then it means that there are some diseases that you're going to predispose your individuals towards. If you look at, the other one is on agribusiness. If we're going, you know, there's talk about the GMO business and the link to the non-communicable diseases that you're talking about. So you have to think about health as you're discussing this. The other thing that I want to change the mindset for many people is that health as a sector is an expense sector, that it's always consuming. And I think that's where we are getting so many of these systemic issues, because from the government, and I'll throw this back at you, is what we budget for in the health sector is so small. I think if we do not invest in the health system, if we do not think of health as an output sector rather than one that consumes, will always be the same problem. When you look at the example that he has mentioned of the error that happened at Kenyatta National Hospital, if you critically analyze it, it's more of one on human resources for health. They are so stretched. I don't know how many of us have ever stepped in Kenyatta National Hospital. The other day, a friend of mine told me she watched her baby die
because there's only one ventilator in the newborn intensive care unit. Only one ventilator that's working. So you can imagine the doctors there are now gods, because they decide which baby gets to get on it. And if the baby who's on it takes a bit more time, then it means every other baby that's coming that needs to access it. And the newborn units can at times have 150 babies in a day. So we have to look at the system issues around health. We have to look at the budgetary issues. We have to look at innovation. I'm challenging each of you to look at whatever area you want to get into. Think about health in the outcome of the innovation that you're addressing. And that health also has unique characteristics. So if you want to go into the mobile business, it's very easy to come up with a mobile app that maybe does Google, uses GPS and the rest. But in the health space, we are highly regulated. The data that we collect in the health sector has to be regulated, because you do not want your information out there accessible to anyone who can hack into the system. If you look at manufacturing in terms of pharmaceutical products, there are standards and procedures that you have to follow to ensure that you're coming up with a quality product that the end user is going to gain from. So when you're thinking about innovation, unfortunately most of our innovators are non-healthcare players, and then we also don't integrate or we don't collaborate at the beginning. So you come up with a solution and then you want to fit it into the health system. So I will encourage you that there are so many organizations that are willing to partner with innovators. Like for AMREF, we can take you to the field. You can go to Samburu, you can go to Lamu, you can go and understand what does the community need? What is the issue? What do they need? Because they have solutions. As my colleague from PDU said, the solutions lie with us. We do not need to come up with the Western solutions and adapt them here. The solutions lie with us, the innovation lie with us, and now there's goodwill from the government to invest in local innovators. For example, this is a particular platform. And finally, also to look at the changing landscape in the health space. One, we're getting more and more young people. I think the youth are one of our biggest demographic population. So when you're innovating, remember the demographics that you're innovating for. That the youth will be your biggest consumers. And the youth are now the millennial generations. They have a very short attention span. And they need variety, they need something very catchy. So when you lose them, they move on to the next thing. So as you're innovating, ensure that you're addressing the need of the population. The other thing we're seeing is that we are coming up with more and more non-communicable diseases. I'm sure many of health information systems. How do we cleverly, and I know the government has a very big agenda to have one data center where all your health records can be accessed by anyone or any facility. I do not have to keep on carrying files, or I do not have to remember as a patient what drugs I've been using, because my information is stored in a cloud-based system somewhere and it's able to be accessed. And then the other one is leadership and governance. And this is the thorny area. And I'm glad that the President has made health as an agenda, because it means he wants to deliver UHC in 2022. Now it's up to the leadership, up to us to ensure that that agenda is realized. But we know, if you look across the counties, Makueni County, how do you think it has succeeded? It's because of the leadership. Turkana County, if you've never been to Turkana, one of the most marginalized places, and it's doing much better, and I will bet you, it is doing much better than Nairobi County in terms of the health services, simply because the leadership has put health as an agenda to it. And there will be many other issues that we are available to partner with you as AMREF. We are an NGO that we believe in lasting health change in Africa, and we believe in sustainable solutions coming from the community. Do not assume that that old lady does not know what she wants. By the way, if you ask her, how do you want us to improve your health, she will have the solution.
What we have, what I'm personally very passionate about, let me start with that, is two things. One is about leaving no one behind. We heard the tagline on the SDGs, leaving no one behind. And why is this important? I think this is important also from an ethical, moral perspective. We have 46 million Kenyans. 55 years after independence, we have a country that's rebased its economy. We're officially a middle-income country. We're climbing up the ladder. We have this narrative of Kenya, which is exciting, we're all proud of. Becky Moon called it, and we, in a sense, did his talking points, but he called this the Silicon Valley, or Silicon Savannah of Africa. So we have this high-tech, we have, very educated youth, we have strong entrepreneurial skills, we're a net exporter of human resources in the African region. So the narrative for Kenya is very exciting. This is where the action is, and I think this is like the Silicon Valley for Africa. We have a huge economy, we're looking at 5-6% growth year on year. This is already impressive, it's an impressive narrative on Kenya. The other narrative is that over 30% of Kenyans, 55 years after independence, are still below the poverty line. For whatever reasons, infrastructure, distance, culture, whatever it may be. So the question is, how do we leave no one behind within that SDG call? And how do we talk the talk of equity? That's where the innovation opportunities are. Because as we work with the 47 counties, we're seeing tremendous opportunities. And I'm glad you mentioned the devolution of innovators going out there and looking at opportunities. And we're already seeing a lot of this around the Tibet structures and around much of the work that's going on. One example was, we've been helping counties develop what are called biashara centers. These are both business incubation and skills training centers. We supported one in Kwale that Honorable Henry Rotich launched, one in Taita Taveta, one in Turkana, and one in Marsabit, and other countries are coming forward. Our role is really to help set up, equip, design, but it becomes the county's own, essentially, project within their own recurrent budget. So, if you look at a county like Marsabit, I don't know how many of you, has anyone been to Marsabit from here? Okay, we have a few people from Marsabit.
Yes, finally.
It's an incredible county. I mean, this is a county that is bigger than Belgium and Germany combined, with a huge desert in the middle, but it also has a small forest, and it also has elephants in a small national park. An incredible site, and it has the highest wind speeds in the world, which is why you're seeing a lot of these wind farm projects popping up there. Now in a county like that, we supported the county to create a biashara center. How do you get indigenous youth from the county to get skilled up? We don't have enough artisans in Kenya. We have an inverted triangle, for every engineer, foreman, and supervisors, you need all these artisans. But that pyramid is inverted. We have all these engineers coming out of universities in Kenya. But do we have enough foremen and do we have enough artisans on the ground? I think, from what I understand, there's only 2 hot welders in Kenya today. Hot welders get that in active pipelines. So we have, in healthcare, we've seen the stats from the Ministry of Health. The number of specialists out in the county, it's quite shocking, the ratio of population versus specialists. So the opportunities for us is to innovate these types of training. So in Marsabit, what we did was we had a nice center, 50 computers, lovely center. But if you were a young person tending goats, and that's your livelihood, how do you leave that and go across a county as big as Belgium and Germany combined through a desert to go for some fancy training with no guarantee of a job at the end? One behind. The second thing I'm really passionate about is about really believing and not being limited by our imagination, believing that Kenya can be a global leader. For 5 decades we've been exporters of raw commodities. We've exported maize and we've exported cows and we've exported tea and coffee. Only to find that that same tea and coffee will come back in an incredibly well-packaged European, packaged decaffeinated. 90 cents on the dollar will go to all the other layers and 10 cents will go to the Kenyan farmer. And there's this joke about when President Museveni went to the previous China-Africa summit, and he was asked by the premier saying that, what has been your issue? And he said, well, we've been exporting all these commodities, but we don't have the value add, we're not getting the full potential. And then eventually when he was told that, oh, well, we want to come to your country and we would like your commodities, and he said, oh, not again. So it's important for us to think about value-add processing, using ICT around value chain, around understanding commodity prices, weather patterns. All of these opportunities are right here under our nose. 30% of African harvest is lost because of storage and lack of value chains. So I think there's great opportunities, but one other message I'd like to just pass on is that for 50 years we've done what we call pilots. We've talked about this pilot, that pilot. I mean, I did pilots 25 years ago. I've been running HACK Foundation in the past for 15 years. We did wonderful pilots. 15 years later, I see a document that says somebody else is piloting something I piloted 15 years ago. So how much redundancy do we have in the system? So my appeal to you would be, when you innovate, don't think about little pilots and puffs of excellence in the sea of deprivation. Think about testing innovations for scale-up. Think about systems thinking. That's how we get to 45 or 46 million Kenyans within the next few years to hit our Big Four agenda. An incredible opportunity also is to be a net exporter of knowledge. Why do we need to rely on Silicon Valley? I was out there, I met the artificial intelligence guys at Facebook, at Google. They can take a photograph of your eye and in 3 minutes tell you whether you have diabetes, using all kinds of algorithms, etc. I think Kenya has the potential to be a net exporter of knowledge. And we're only limited by our imagination. And to the extent that we can, M-Pesa has been a great opportunity for us to really open up our eyes and say, wow, we can be a world leader. So don't hold yourself back. Don't assume that the greatest knowledge comes from the other parts of the world. We have a divine authority up there that has sprinkled intellectual potential all across the world. So really, I think don't be limited by your imagination and look at counties and look at devolution as your ticket to scale up. Thank you.
Powerful message.
It's unfortunate that there are some industries that we were very well renowned for. For example, in the textile, I remember you could go to Harrods in London and buy a Raymond suit. I remember, if you had, the blankets that we all grew up, depending on the generation, grew up on. And if you go to Eldoret, it's a sad sight when you start going to the former Rivertex areas or Everready areas, and you could see the housing that it used to supply, and the schools that were there, and the hospitals that were even funded by some of these organizations. That was lost over a period of 30 years or so. To start that back up, you would need an entire cotton industry, but now we are, there needs to be regulation and government, intervention in protecting farmers within that space. When we look at coffee today, the comparison is, do I build flats or do I maintain coffee? There needs to be some form of regulation and zonings that the government needs, the counties need to participate in. When we talk about power, I would say power applies to the big manufacturers. Yeah? So if you're bringing, part of the agenda in manufacturing is to increase the capacity for iron and coal production. Now you're talking about real power demands, especially when you're smelting iron ore to make it into some ready usable product. For example, steel to feed into the housing.
I'm having a setup program for high school students and primary school kids, and I'm under the setup with Special Africa. So I was asking if the United Nations have got a program for maybe partnership, and maybe if they could chip in. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Gideon Sitine. I'm a student architect and an entrepreneur. My question is to Mr. Lee. What are you doing to increase efficiency in the building industry? Because you find, as of now, you need an NEMA registration number, an NCA registration number, then another lot with the counties to get the permits. So you'll have, if you are an architect, you'll need 47 accounts and 47 other name accounts, 47 other NC accounts. What are you doing to increase that efficiency in the industry? Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. My name is Ibrahim Omondi. I'm a former student from Egerton University. I pursued the BSc Agricultural Economics. To agribusiness, I can call myself an innovator, and I'm also the founder member of SOBA. We are doing project coming in Busia. Actually, I had one of the speakers saying that innovators are only in Nairobi. We've come from Busia. My colleagues have sent me to come all along. So in agribusiness, we are finding challenges in the development of apps. Professionally, I'm an agribusiness, but when it comes to app development, because there are some farmers that are constantly asking us some questions that maybe require some mechanism to answer them. Like we are doing some project somewhere whereby we are getting to farmers using Twitter. We had a platform. So it's my request that the mentors that we are having today may mentor us and help us develop an app so that if we want to communicate to our farmers, let's say farmer A has eggs for kukwa kienyeji and farmer B needs them. We want to create that platform. So that is where our challenge lies. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Regarding efficiency in the building industry and the many licenses that you require, the many processes that you have to go through, fortunately, that has been discussed within the manufacturing cluster, and they identified this problem. The good thing is that it has been work in progress through the efforts to improve the ease of doing business. I think you would perhaps find it easier now to register a company, to even get your KRA PIN online without ever going to any government office and so on and so forth. So it's work in progress. Our target is by 2022 to be top 50 in the ease of doing business in the world. So these are some of the things that we're looking at. And our county officials were there from Nairobi. And this is, they've been part and parcel of these discussions on how to try and consolidate this process, this licensing regime that has been there. So it's a problem that is being thought about and actively being looked into. So hopefully by 2020, we'll probably be in a better place to make it easier for you and the people in your industry to carry out your innovations without being bogged down by complicated legal regime.
Okay, before we go to the next question, I've been really much interested in the health workers ecosystem because it's really the best channel for what ideally I would see as universal health, because we might not necessarily build hospitals, build infrastructure of that, but we can train enough healthcare workers within the different areas who can be able to address this health. And if I look at it, one of the companies that has tapped into that is Living Goods. They've tapped into the health worker system. They are now able to distribute their drugs through them. So they train them, they go into the places, they distribute their drugs for a commission. Do you see a local business starting up the same sort of setup and now moving it beyond Nairobi? Because I know Living Goods focuses a lot in Kibera and the typical big slums. Can we have a way, can I start a business that purely focuses on training healthcare workers, getting them, of course, from the different areas? And is there a program where we can, I can partner with the AMREF towards, now doing this at a large devolved scale within the counties?
Okay, thank you for that question. So the example of Living Goods, it's an NGO that has a social enterprise where they market products, especially in the nutrition side and a few of the over-the-counter pharmaceuticals. In this case, they're using the frontline health workers, who are called community health volunteers. For now, community health volunteers are largely, as the name implies, volunteers. So we have an advocacy program that looks at ensuring that these CHVs, because they're very important workforce, are recognized and remunerated like our health care providers like the rest. So in AMREF, yes, we believe again in community health solutions, and the CHVs are an important link between the formal health system and the community or the households. How it's arranged is that every community health volunteer is in charge of 10 households. So they're the ones who know who's pregnant, they'll know which child has malnutrition, they'll know which head of the household has lost their job, because that is a socioeconomic impact. So they're very, very important in terms of that data that's at community level. They're important at spreading health messages, and they're also important in delivering some health services like immunizations, basic immunizations, family planning commodities, vitamin A supplements and such. So if you have, if you look at that area of community health, there's so much potential. One is these CHVs are usually not medics. Most of them are Form 4 leavers. In fact, some counties, they just use, it's a committee that identifies. So some are even illiterate or maybe semi-literate. It's just that they need to be recognized by the community as leaders or speakers or people who can represent the community. So there's that niche of just education. And for us, what we do is that we have a mobile app. It's not an app, because it uses a basic form to have modules that help them to uplift their knowledge and skills at their own time. So the skills gap is very big for them. The household coverage, targeting households, because some communities are very mobile. If you went to Turkana, if you went to Samburu, these are households which every so often, when the season changes, they move, they demolish the whole house and move to across the border. So how can you develop solutions that are specific for the nomadic population, so that when that household goes, say, to Uganda because they're going for greener pastures, you're still able to track them, and you know how many went and gave birth or how many died. There's so many demographics that you can work around community health. The other one is even coming up with income generating activities, and this is the example that Living Goods has done, is that by going to house, they're able to also market their products and get something in their pockets. So what other income generating activities can we deploy amongst the CHVs so that it's a sustainable way of remunerating them or keeping them engaged, rather than sometimes relying on the county governments, because county governments, the ones that are recognizing them, are just giving them 2,000 shillings a month. And you'll be amazed at the amount of data these people, it's almost like a full-time job, because they're required to come back to the facilities and link to the facilities to give information. That the ones who tell the mothers, please go for antenatal care at least 4 times in your pregnancy. So they are a very, very important skill set. But when you go higher up the health workforce, you have now the nurses, then you go to the clinical officers, then you go to the doctors and the specialists that come up. Each specific cadre has its own unique characteristics and its own challenges. For the nurses, you find we have a very big workforce, but almost half of them are unemployed. So how do we create employment? How do we enable nurses they're now able to open small clinics or run small pharmacies. So how do we have innovations around them building sustainability? Because everyone is waiting to be employed. You're not the only ones who are looking for employment. How do we change that culture, mindset, so that these people know, how can I get into self-employment? How can I get into a distribution industry? Because I'm using the health knowledge that I have. For the doctors, again, it's the same thing. Counties are not employing doctors. You saw in the newspapers, and as much as we got the Cuban doctors, many doctors are not employed by them. The counties do not have the budget for it because their budgets are really stretched. For the doctors, the biggest issue is they want to go for further training, but the counties are saying, look, when you go for further training, it means that I still pay your salary, I pay your school fees, and I have to employ someone else to replace you at the facility. So how do we bring in education on higher learning into the facilities? And there are some collegiate systems that are doing that already, like the College of Surgeons. They are bringing the mentors into the facility so that you don't have to release the doctor to go elsewhere and then have a double kind of budget system. So innovations around education, innovations around even the data around human resources. We do not know how many doctors we have, let me tell you the truth. We do not know how many doctors are actually in clinical practice. Some of us are doctors, we are still in the register, but when was the last time I saw a patient? I think 15 years ago. So when the government is counting me as a doctor, am I really a doctor offering services to the facilities? So how do we innovate around the data management systems of just human resources for health? You can basically look at so many opportunities if you just look at the health workforce alone. So be open-minded. I'll still push you to go and see firsthand.
I come from Microsoft Imagine Academy. I'm a student taking computer science. So my question will go to Mr. Lee. We as the youth, most times we've been advised that it's going to be beneficial to us if we can find an avenue of interacting with the government. Also when it comes to job creation, we have a platform that is the e-citizen. We're told that if we can go there, then we open or we start our company, we register it. It's going to be easier for us to have a one-in-one communication with the government. Now, the thing that you guys missed to tell us is that we'll have to pay taxes, is that we'll have to do lots of bidding for us to get the tenders. You forgot to tell us that we can also fail to get the tenders. You forgot to tell us that we are going to have to pay taxes regardless of whether we got the tenders or not. I'll give you a case study where we have, let me call him Person X. Person X opened a company, it was registered. He decided to do the bidding for tenders. He did the first bidding, second bidding, third bidding. Well, unfortunately for him, he never got any. 3 years down the lane, he owes the government about 72 million in tax that he hasn't worked for or he hasn't gotten the income. What steps are you taking so that we as the youth can be educated about opening companies and working with the government?
Thank you, James.
Based university students studying electronic media. My question is in line with what he's asked, and also it was what you previously wanted to ask, but it kind of fell down in the conversation. Why is education not among the big four? And also I would like to ask, other than the plans for the tablet and the new educational structures you had started, I don't know, it was 2.5 something, 2.7 something. Yeah, is there any, are you changing the curriculum so that children grow up knowing they can be innovators, entrepreneurs and such? Because we've gone to school and we've been told to go to school, get a good job and your life will be set for you. So that when we come to such forums, we have more and more people here seeking to know how to be innovators, creators and entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
My name is Angela. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for my company, Swift, and my niche is in housing. And basically, I'm quite happy, and thank you once more for organizing such a forum. I've learned a lot. Just felt like we're being a bit sidelined, especially the young people, when it comes to housing. It felt like the houses are meant for, the established people, people who have all the money, they are able to live in. What are we doing to ensure that the population, which totals to over 70% being the young person who doesn't have a job, who probably is a hustler, how are we going to enable that they also get affordable housing, like in the long run, so as to achieve the Big Four housing agenda? Also, I have an issue with the innovation bit. Like I've partnered with a company, a very incredible company when it comes to the ICT, and they listened to my idea about the entire innovation with the housing, and they told me, look, we like your idea, it's concrete, we are going to develop this application for you, but it's worth $2 million. Are you able to put a down payment? That narrows down to, I have the solution, or probably I have a product which is worthwhile, but then again, the economic capacity, it's left to the big companies who, in my case study, they don't really narrow down to the low-income earner or this person who doesn't have a consistent income. How do you plan on going about that? The other issue is, like, I've also partnered with a financial institution, and they're willing to, like, give us part of the cash to go on building the houses and everything, but the interest rate, they are quite high, you know? So I thought probably why not go to, I hope no one is from the big cooperatives, because I've tried partnering with them and they told me no, it's workable. Yes, you can sell your houses at $500,000 Kenyan shillings. You can have a flexible payment plan for the common mwananchi to pay 100 bob or 50 shilling and own that housing 10 years time. But no, we're looking at it from the business perspective. We need our cut, you know? If we bring you on board, you'll have to sell these houses at 1.2 million for us to get our cuts, you know? It feels like making it to the top ladder, you have to compromise so many things and end up not delivering. So even these partnerships, are they looking at the, you know, the details of this person who has the goodwill of the people at heart? Because it's a community whereby it's felt like a man-eat-man society. What am I getting at the table? I don't care about you, I don't care about your vision. What are we doing to ensure that the entire process is sustainable? Thank you.
Yes, I want to ask this question on behalf of one of us here who is representing a constituent that could not make it. He is not a youth, but he speaks for the bottom of the pyramid in the Eastland direction. And this question perhaps is directed to you, Lee. As they look at the Big Four, especially the housing pillar, they are afraid that that pillar has been designed to displace that group of people, especially those who are living in areas like Mathare, Korogosho, Mukuru, those areas. And as they look at the example of Kibera, the feedback I got is that if they had seen the Kibera people placed in better housing so that that development can happen, then they would bless the Big Four. So there is a bit of not resentment. There is lack of appreciation for now on what the Big Four is really doing for them. And they are seeing themselves suffering in the process. So how would you answer to that? What is the plan for the government? And just, I liked her question on affordable housing, just to understand how are we really bringing in these people that are really at the bottom. They want to live better, definitely. They're not happy living in Mathare and the other places. What are we thinking? And what is the opportunity for me as an entrepreneur? What is the opportunity for these people? Last question, this is for me now. Nyumba Kumi initiative, and perhaps this I'm talking to the innovators in the house. I know the Nyumba Kumi came in as an initiative for security, but I'm trying to think and connecting it to Daktari when you talked about the community health volunteers, and just thinking about what else can we come up with around the Nyumba Kumi initiative. What kind of innovations can we come up with so that we can live in better communities instead of having communities where there is poor environment, where we do not have good rainwater, where we do not have affordable electricity. What is it that we can come up with as innovators? So it's a question I think probably not for you, but for the innovators to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. You talked about the issue.
Please remind me if I skip any of the questions. James. Working with government. First of all, let me offer myself my availability since I'm representing government. PDU, I think, is one of the available offices open doors. We listen to anyone and everyone under the sun. When we launched the portal, we got a lot of questions around some of the things we have done, and we would ensure we respond to each and every of those questions. There are many Kenyans who are connected to electricity during that period of the portal launch, simply because they wrote an email to us. And we forwarded that to Kenya Power, to Ministry of Energy, and we ensured that those Kenyans are connected to electricity. There's a gentleman, rather a lady in Maturu, who was running a chicken poultry farm, and was having issues connected to electricity. Now she's a happy poultry farmer. There's another gentleman in the western side, I think around Kakamega area, who was having issues getting a transformer to their place. Now they have electricity. So it's a learning process, and we strive to do the best we can. We are here. You can talk to us. You can visit us regarding some of these issues, and we see how best we can help you. So, as PDU, let me make myself available regarding that. Concerns regarding startups as well, bring them up, the specific concerns. The issue of someone who was asked, who owes government 72 million in taxes, it'd be good to bring that up as a case, and we try and get to the bottom of it. There's someone who was trying to open a business and he was being taken around in circles. Again, brought up the issue and we were able to address it. So it's good that you're bringing them up now. There's an opportunity to reduce some of these concerns that we have. We're willing to help wherever we can, and happy to help wherever we can. There are opportunities for the youth. There's a youth fund. Some of us used to write to us regarding access to the youth fund. We give them the process of applying and so on and so forth. And in some cases you realize it's actually lack of information, or where to find that information. And we try our level best to make that available to you. There are opportunities and the processes are supposed to be followed. Well, unfortunately, government is still government. It has to protect many interests. It's dealing with somebody else's money, your money, my money. So some processes sometimes are very difficult to get a read of, but nevertheless, we will try. So with regards to working with government, you can reach out to us. The privilege I would say I have is the fact that I come from the private sector. Before I was asked to join government and help them come up with a dashboard for all the projects that they're doing. One key thing I've learned, and I think it's something that you probably pick out from all the speakers that I'm talking about today, you will notice one thing. No one is talking about technology per se. They are highlighting to you certain challenges within the respective sectors. And one thing I have learned, building systems for government and private sector, it's never about the technology. Listen to those problems, listen to those concerns, spend time with the person who's feeling the pinch, the end user, understand what their problems are, find a solution using technology to address those problems. Sometimes we in ICT, we get caught up in the technology and we start talking very complicated ICT terms, the programming languages, and so on and so forth. One time somebody told me, Lee, you're not talking to us. You're mentioning things we don't understand. Then you realize sometimes you can get lost in that. But please listen to some of the problems, specific problems that are being highlighted here, and find solutions that can be implemented using technology. Why is education not in the Big Four agenda? Education is a pillar of the Big Four agenda. Our assumption is you cannot carry on manufacturing without a reliable workforce, a relevant workforce. You cannot talk about food security if you don't have people who understand issues to do with agro-processing and so on and so forth. So education, we realize, cannot be treated as a standalone, but cuts across the board. And in any case, whenever we have those discussions of the different clusters, we have some key ministries and sectors represented. ICT sits across all the four. Education sits across all the four. TVET sits across all the four, because they realize they have to provide an input to each and every one of these four sectors. So it is a pillar, and as of that, we would say it's actually more important in a sense. It's important in a sense for us to be able to achieve the big four. The others are governance. There's an issue to do with the financing. As I said, ICT is one of them. So there are, I think, 5 or 6 that have been identified as pillars. So it is a pillar of the big four. Why change curriculum? As I mentioned earlier, in the first term, when the new presidency came into power, first of all, they realized there's so many things to be done. Roads have not been done, many potholes over the place. Electricity is not connected to many Kenyans. Hospitals are not equipped. There were so many things that needed to be done. But then as we try to do some of these things, we realize, first of all, we don't even have the human capacity to support some of these initiatives. Yes, you want to drill oil, but there is no Kenyan who's trained in some of those oil-related technologies. You have putting up a 300+ billion project on SGR, but you find yourself needing to rely on foreigners to help you run some of these things. So then we realize our curriculum really needs to change to reflect where Kenya is going. So we are moving from the 844 system into a competence-based curriculum system, which will factor in issues to do with you could say issues to do with the technical institutes, which will be factored in as part and parcel of curriculum. At the moment, those are looked at as an exception rather than one of the main parts that you follow on your way to getting relevant certification. So we are trying to really look at the entire education curriculum to make it relevant to what Kenya is in need of at the moment in order to support some of these initiatives that we're taking. So that's the idea behind changing the curriculum to an ecosystem that allows those who are not able to access houses with the current setup be able to access those houses. So it might mean setting up a housing fund that is supported by government and related institutions so that as a student, perhaps I don't need to go to the bank and be charged incredible high interest rates in order to be able to access a house. So there is a program of trying to ensure that more of us are able to access houses affordably without feeling the pinch. So even at 2 million, I should be able to access houses. Using the rent that I'm paying right now, I should be able to buy houses in that rate. So there is an element of affordable housing. And there are models which are being studied and looked at the moment to ensure that more of us are able to afford houses. There's the social houses. There's those of us who, in spite of you trying to make houses affordable, will still not be able to afford them. And so government will specifically try itself to put up houses targeting, you could say, those in Kiberas and the like. But from the plan I haven't seen anywhere where somebody is going to be replaced. Because the reliance here is on government land, and some of them have been identified around Nairobi and around the counties. So I would imagine that's where we're going to put up some of these social houses. The affordable houses might require, for instance, government to partner with a private developer, come up with arrangements where the private developer might not need to pay so much money to acquire the land, so as to reduce the cost of putting up the house, perhaps, or reduce some of the taxes. I think in the latest financial bill, we are going to have a situation where if you're part of the housing, if you qualify for some of these houses, then you're not going to be charged stamp duty as a first-time buyer of these houses. So there's some incentives which are being looked at to ensure that partnering with private developers, they will continue doing their projects, but then you incentivize them as part of building projects to consider some of those projects falling as part and parcel of their affordable houses. So fine, somebody wants to put up 100 houses, and you sit down with that person, then say, okay, fine, you can put up your 100 houses, but why don't you add a few more that can target this cluster, and these are the incentives that we're going to give you. So there are certain models which are being looked at to make some houses affordable. The ones who can pay at current economic conditions can continue paying that, but then there's that group that cannot afford it, even if you try and make it affordable to them, and those ones are going to be taken care of by the social houses. So that's how government is trying to look at that, and I think when all these work plans, I would say, are finished, then I think some of them will be made public. I don't know if that doesn't.
So housing, but since I live in a house, I think I have an opinion. We work in the wash sector, which is water, sanitation, and hygiene, and I visited some projects we do in Busia, and they use this, they're called Mariga bricks. So basically, it is made of soil and just a little bit cement. And those things are, I mean, the outcome of, now for that they were using them for the toilets, but the outcome, it's so beautiful, it's better than a normal brick. So I would agree with you that we do have ways in which we can have local solutions to local problems. Now I wanted to touch on bargaining power. This is across the board. We see that most of you are the youth, and e-mentorship is all about strengthening the youth. Now the youth, you're coming in with advantages and disadvantages. I'm not a youth, actually. I'm no longer eligible for the youth fund. So, but that also comes with advantages and disadvantages. So you're coming in with the innovation, you're coming in with the idea, you're coming in with the solution. You may not have the experience. And if you do not realize that you need that resource also addressed, you will get into a lot of frustration. So what do I mean by experience? It means having mentors who are in that field, who can tell you, okay, whom you can sound off your innovation to, and who can also open certain doors. So maybe the e-mentoring Africa organization is providing this kind of platform where you're linking in the innovators, you're linking in the mentors, you're linking with the financial providers, or you're linking with the ready markets or whatever other resource that you require, because you do not hold the solutions. If you want to do everything, if you hope that, yes, this is an exciting thing, everyone can see it's exciting, and you hope that it will be snapped up tomorrow, the market forces are very, very different. You'll find that there are 3 of you coming up with such a thing, and the investor is looking at returns on investment for them. So know your product, know the bargaining power or the value add that it comes up with, and then identify people who can support. And I think there are organizations that can do this for free. You do not have to incur extra costs in terms of advisory role. I think many of the organizations represented here, or maybe in the network that other organizations have, should be able to support some of these activities for free. But so that when you're going to the financial institutions, you're going in with a very solid proposal. Because there's so many, you can imagine some of us sitting on the other side of the table, you can imagine the number of emails or proposals or ideas that churn through our system. And sifting all this, everyone is selfish, everyone wants to take care of their interests first. So ensure that one, you have a very good legal backup, because intellectual property, I'm not having you talking about intellectual property here. We were talking with one of your, and so maybe it will be revealed, one of the innovators here, whom we're looking at partnering, and I told them, look, have you registered this innovation under the IP? Who holds the IP? Because people steal IPs, yeah? Has that happened to any of you? So you've come up with an idea, you're going to send it off, and someone tells you, oh, let me look at it, just give me a proposal. The next thing you know, that's how M-Pesa came about, that's what I understand, yeah? The next thing you know, someone has snapped it up. So ensure that you've registered your innovation as an IP with the relevant legal requirements to protect you or to protect the brand, and then know the worth of your brand, and have someone handhold you. You can't do it alone. So partnerships are very important. And don't give up. The first person you approach will most definitely not buy your invention. Because as I mentioned, everyone is innovating. It's the buzzword. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Everyone wants to be the next, the Facebook guys called Zuckerberg. We can't all be. Yeah? So don't give up with the first try. Keep on knocking the doors. Keep on refining your proposal. Get the feedback. Get it. It's constructive feedback. No one is out there to see you fail. So as they point out certain things, take it positively and see how to refine it to better understand the need that's in the market.
Finances and the frustrations probably that you experience. Unfortunately, a lot of times when new business is going to seek funding, they don't understand how the lender is viewing them. And so to you go with them because you have a really innovative idea. You can even tell them what the market is, you can even show them customers. But you find the bank or whatever institution that you're targeted is viewing you purely as a risk. Yeah? And in this market of interest rate caps, where a bank cannot price that risk to you, then they choose to just purely, refrain, or rather give you unreasonable terms that basically is telling you not to lend. This is very common with a lot of SMEs. In fact, that is one of the reasons where majority, I think there is some rule that says 80% of SMEs collapse within the first 5 years, yeah? Something like that. And that's because of the lack of understanding of finances. My view and my suggestion is, even though you have a very great vision, you start very small in bites that you can chew. Right? In your case, it's housing. You have one, you do it well, and you can demonstrate proof of concept that I did it, I built it for X, I sold it for 500,000, it met my objective of giving, I guess, I would say affordable housing, the definition that was given. And then from there, you can say, I've done one, I'll show you I can do another, can you give me part of it? And from the proceeds from the first, you feed into the next. Most entrepreneurs see their businesses as being successful almost immediately. It's a journey. You make mistakes, you get rejected either by your customers and so on and so forth. So financing is one of the things that, if I talk to any SME, there's this book I recommend called The Lean Starter, right? So you try and leverage as much as you can on your own before you proceed into investing into other expenses that you cannot recuperate because you don't have the market yet. Yeah. So I look at it from that standpoint. I don't know if that kind of helps you. The market right now is very tight. If you look, the government needs money, and so for you, you're competing against the government as a borrower, and the government is a guaranteed payer. So, in fact, it's a very hostile climate for SMEs, very, very hostile climate. Because even the working capital that you need, there's a certain ministry that needs it more than you. So you're battling some of those things. So if you can leverage whatever resources you have and start small, and then talk to other funds. There are few private equity funds or social impact funds that, especially in this space where you're doing something that has a social impact, would be willing to support you, even if it's with seed money to do the feasibility studies. I think there are organizations like Acumen, Habitat. There are people who can give you money to at least get you to proof of concept, and then maybe now tell you, okay, now move on and you'll be able to get something. So, okay, I think mine is to all of us, yourselves and ourselves included. First of all, we are patriots, we love this country. This is our home, this is the home of our children, our parents, and so therefore we have a responsibility to make this place a better place. That's one. Number two, I think if you're going to, in whatever field that you're going to, whether it's academia, business, you have to have a focus. You cannot know everything. Focus on your craft and perfect it, right? And make sure that there is data behind it to support it. I think Dr. Event-Nmk said that you go and make innovative solutions without understanding where you're even going to sell it to or to who's going to consume it. So if you're able to focus, put everything that you have in it, understand that there's nothing for free, because that's the assumption that is made. So I think I have the best brain, the best ideas. There are people way smarter than Zuckerberg. There are people who are way smarter than Bill Gates and things like that, who today read their books, right? So you have to put your best foot forward. Even though there is, challenging times, we are a very resilient country. We've made strides. If you can look up, I talked to you about my shoes. We have come a long way, and I still feel like there's a lot of upside, especially with the youth. You are the guys who are going to really change this country. Our work is to set the foundation for it as best as we can. But you probably know more than us, and probably will be sitting on that side of the table in the future, just in amazement about what you're capable of doing.
Mine is an encouragement that it's possible. Don't give up on the dream. If that's your passion, pursue it. Just don't work alone. Reach out for help. I think you have amazing resources if you work together. So don't give up. It's going to be frustrating, but we have quite a number of people who want to see you succeed.
Every challenge we've talked about today, every challenge you're going to face is something that can be considered an opportunity. When I was trying to set up the government performance reporting system, something quite new in an environment where people are used to printing a lot of hard copies to show updates, it was very difficult, very frustrating. And then you're given contacts from the ministries who don't even know how to use Excel. But these are the ones we're supposed to work with on a system to help you capture data. But we still managed to work with them and give them a system that they can use. And at some point, I had to use my own money to support that system until people understood its capabilities and what it's capable of doing. So, if you believe in an idea, you see a problem, go ahead and try whichever means possible to solve it. Because any challenge you come across is an opportunity. And some of those initiatives we took then have become opportunities in many other aspects. Now we're trying to work with county commissioners to see if they can use mobile phones to validate some of the projects ministries report to us. A challenge is an opportunity. And that's the way I think in ICT we need to look at issues.
Thank you. Mine is an analogy I like using everywhere. I think we are all, if we consider ourselves from a basic value, when you mine a diamond, you don't mine a diamond when it's shining, you mine a diamond when it's cold. So I always say in life, we always start from somewhere where we have a base value. Now, the difference between the ones who go miles ahead and the ones who remain struggling is the person who goes the extra length now to start hitting that coal, and then the tip of that diamond starts popping up. You know, when your business has started and you're struggling, your financial problems, you're trying to figure it out. Then slowly you keep at it. It's just the same way the person keeps hitting that diamond until the tip starts coming out. Slowly by slowly you start removing the coal, and then you realize the real value for that particular diamond. Now, life is like that. You start at a base value, you start hitting it. You start hitting it until the real value of it comes out. Now, if you look at the diamond, why I always use the story of a diamond, there's never two diamonds that are the same. You can never go and start shaping diamonds and your result is two pieces of diamond that are the same. So in life, we'll never have the same businesses. You might call them the same names, but they'll never be the same. The second thing about diamonds is that they radiate different colors on each side of it. Yeah? So even as you grow your businesses, never have a one-sided view of your business. Always think about how can I evolve this. The difference between the 1,000,001 businesses that start and say, the typical analogy of Mama Mboga. Somebody starts a Mama Mboga shop this morning. I've learned a lot, and it's good that at least I've increased my network of people. Now I know a doctor, I know somebody in manufacturing, and I know who to beat over my 16% fuel. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you once again to our panelists. The insight that you provide has gone a long way. Hopefully we'll take that call and make guidance from it. Up next, I would like to invite Ms. Esther Mishiri, the architect for this day, to guide us or tell us what tomorrow or next week holds.
I would like us to kindly clap again for our fantastic panelists. When we invited you, we had no idea what you had. We knew you came with serious recommendations, but I'm sure those who referred us to you knew what you were getting into. If you would allow us, we will want to journey with you. Sadly, you've stepped into this space. Lee, you just offered yourself to be the government face. At least I can promise you that these people will not knock on your door. However, this space, the Harry Hub, is the space where we want to have these kind of conversations. The National Museum and ICT Authority has gotten into a fantastic opportunity where, and if you agree from here, we shall walk over to Harry Hub so that you get a feel of what is this innovation space. Unlike the other innovation spaces that we probably are aware of, where you take your innovation and you look for people to invest, and perhaps you really don't get much out of it, this is the place to test your ideas. And we shall bring, allow me to continue using the word, free resources from government, from AMREC, from business people who are succeeding, but they really would want to work with bright minds like yourself. Early in the morning, as you said, as the MC, as the moderator said, Bitange offered the academia, and I think we have some sitting right there. That resource, university has so much information. Kindly stand up, let us appreciate it. I know we have. Yes, thank you. Yes, sir, thank you. He is a wealth of knowledge, him and others. We shall bring them and we will be organizing perhaps fireside chats for us to talk. However, as a way forward for today, we did not know how this would go until we allowed it to flow the way it has. I am sure we've not had enough. We still have questions. The idea now is for you to go and think through what you've just written. Some of the ideas that have come out of here are things we never thought about. You hear manufacturing, you wonder, I never thought of manufacturing in that angle. You hear of housing, and you do not see a connection of housing and health and stuff like that. So let's think around that. When we meet here again next week, same space, same time, here is our promise, breakfast will be served early. So kuja na njaa. If you come late, there is no food for you. Perhaps that can be a bit of an incentive for people to come a little early. Usipige nyumbani. Today we did badly in terms of time, but we appreciate you for keeping time. We told them to be here at 9 o'clock, and sure enough, 9 o'clock our speakers were here. So if we could kindly pull up our socks as young people, because this is what starts showing our seriousness in life. Let's meet here a little earlier. We shall be going through your ideas. It will be your time to speak. We shall have more mentors in the room to hear you. So if you have an idea that has just popped, it may be as raw as it gets. Doctor has said, ask questions. Bring it as raw. Daniel talked about diamond. It has to be chongwad until you see the shiny thing. Bring that raw idea that you have, and let's discuss about it. After next week, whatever we come up with, you will then form yourselves into groups, and we start using the Harry Hub to innovate. On a weekly basis, you will tell us who you want to bring on board. In this group today, we have lawyers. Yes, they are not innovators, but there is a legal team of young people who came here because they thought you guys need legal advice as you grow your innovations. They have offered to be part of the mentors, just to work with you, to help you understand what is IP, how do you protect yourself, how do you do ABC. There are people who are in business they are offering their services to help you start putting your ideas into some structure. There are people who will help you in communication and pitching. How do you stand here? And if you've never spoken in public and your knees go like this, how can he help you with those soft skills so that you're able to stand and present your idea so that we understand? And if you're questioned and hit with questions, you do not shy away and say, that's what has been. Those are the soft things that we shall be handling. And finally, we shall try and see how we can bring other private sector partners. We have Telecom Kenya, who have provided Wi-Fi at the Heritage and within the National Museum. They are part of this group. We have other IT bigwigs that are really interested in what you're doing. So this is just the beginning of who you will be seeing. You can tell us who you want to come and speak to you, to advise you in your area. Already we have the Director of Housing coming in to speak to you some more about the opportunities that are there. Dr. is here on health, and she will bring other doctors perhaps. And one of the things I'm thinking about, and it's something that with your help we can reach out to SDG, is how can we actually tembea Kenya? Remember what you've been told? Go out there and see for yourselves. Don't imagine a problem in Nairobi. Think a problem as a Kenyan. Let's plan a tour for Kenya. For those of us who will be serious, we shall organize. I can try and promise that as Event-Nmk, we have done that before. We already have a project running in Marsabit. Perhaps that will be a fast stop. We can then do Kilifi, we could do some more, we could go to Turkana. Let's do a Tembea Kenya as innovators, led by these gurus, and together let's make a difference. So promise next week, same time here. Think about your ideas. We have your contacts, we are writing to you this weekend or earliest Monday. Throw your ideas to us. When you receive our email as Event-Nmk, send your ideas. What you've not been able to ask because probably your voice started shaking, throw that in as an email. We have IEEE represented. We have fantastic technologies that have been tested globally. They are willing. It's a volunteer organization with solutions. We shall give that to you free of charge. So sometimes don't think that you are the one innovating. Iba idea kutoka India ama mahali pengine, tweak it, make it local. That's our promise. And with those few very many remarks, I want to say a special thanks to our fantastic MC for today and beyond, Ms. Tonya Nyakea. You've been wonderful. Thank you, Tonya, for being there with us. I want to thank the E-Mentoring Africa team. They are all over here, our media team, Sylvester, Christina, Pam, Eddie, others out there. Thank you for making this happen, and we look forward to working with you. From me and the rest of the team, may God bless you. Have a fantastic